I am going to do this intuitive video on spiritual emergency, or if you'd like to categorize this as a, a midlife crisis, sort of a stepping into an awakening. I can feel a sneeze coming on. Hopefully, it doesn't come on. Um, okay, so you find yourself in a position of trying to navigate into what you perceive as a spiritual emergency. Um, the rug has been pulled out from under you. You've been betrayed. You have been devastated, or you feel it's time for a transition in this along this path, and you feel a calling, and maybe you're even to the point where you even feel like there is a force guiding you along this path, this very unique and individual path, kind of like where the world has become separated between who you are, your identity, everything you think is real, by a membrane. It's like kind of sensitive. Oh, the world, you're reacting to everything from the world. And so your energetic field, so to speak, if you're thinking along these lines, your energetic field has become charged and very sensitive to everything that's in it versus everything that's around you. So you're experiencing discomfort, you're experiencing possibly depression, you're experiencing mood swings, maybe a sense of dread, a sense of doubt, and you're starting to kind of follow signs. And now these signs, they can have general categories to them. Some of them can influence your faith dynamics or your trust dynamics. If you have a monotheistic mentality, if you are accustomed to the idea of one God and how that dictates one person's faith, in however that might resonate with you in this category, you may feel a sense of doubt, or the opposite of an attraction towards this force, one or the other. Either you didn't have faith and you feel like maybe I do need faith, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Or perhaps you had faith and you're coming away from it being like, oh, my faith does not serve me anymore. You could be in that category, and we'll just set that category aside for now. You can be coming from an approach of not having a faith, and feeling like gravitating towards your own spiritual nature is exactly what you need to do. And then you could be struggling. Let's say you're undecided. You know that there's a spiritual side, or you've always known there's a spiritual side, or maybe there's this astral side. Maybe you have always dabbled in astrology, and now you feel the pressure is on to go one or two directions, to either become more grounded or to become more divinely influenced, let's say. And then there's this fulcrum point, this struggle of whether or not, do I need to stay more grounded? Do I need to stay more balanced? Because every time you try to become more grounded and balanced and do something you're supposed to do on that plane of existence, in reality, physical reality, there seems to be a cog in the mechanism. You move to do something, and like a chessboard, something stands in your way. Opposition stands in your way. And if you're experiencing that, let me know down in the comments, because it's no coincidence. when our energy is ready to transition along a certain path that we are supposed to be aware of, when we move to action with intention, that higher self and that higher influence stands right in the way, or flips the cog. Like I was supposed to go to work today, on a day when I don't normally go to work, and I know that. And but I decided I am going to do this, but I know that there are lessons that Spirit wants me to or there's a play that Spirit wants me to act out, and in acting out that play there is a lesson, as long as I am aware of it on many dimensions. And that is why I'm here making this video. So there's a shift and a fulcrum point we need to get beyond. So but then our resources of information on which paths are available or what we're supposed to do isn't necessarily clear, and that is perfectly normal. What you need to do, one of the best advice I ever got when I started on my spiritual awakening, was that to observe everything that is in your entire lifespan, in general, your entire lifespan of events, from when you're born to the end of your life, and the accumulation of all the lives that came before that, the accumulation of all the lives that come after that, they will have a general theme. They will change and evolve with your awareness. But when you reach this fulcrum point, until that time, they have had a general theme, and that theme will expand into all the unpleasant and most pleasant things you can ever think of along an entire lifespan. Now, I had to figure this explanation out myself, but the advice was generally given: if you want to develop psychic abilities, intuitive abilities, kind of start with just observing what is. So start a journal, start a book of everything you experience that you can possibly remember, and leave room for that to evolve, because memories will evolve, and memories are not set in stone. Now, you won't find this out, you won't have this as a concrete frame of reference until later on. But if you hear this now and understand that, starting with the journal and recording as much as you can in your memory, and keep many journals, because over time your journals will change, and you'll want to integrate the information. You'll want to keep files, because this is the basis for your magic. Your memory and your imagination are what the focal point become as you gain mastery. And so you want to start with knowing, hey, I need to definitely evolve my memory capability, my imagination expansion, and an ability to create with your imagination. Because your ability to create from your perceptual view and your senses in your body, from where your body is in the physical world, you will feel like, oh my gosh, I can manipulate energy. And so to be able to manipulate actual energy on another plane of existence, you need to exercise your imagination. So if you've grown up and you've always been able to have a nice active imagination, and you have good, vivid dreams, good, that's a great start. The fulcrum point, that fulcrum point of the senses and the perception wanting to stay grounded in reality and pass through a barrier that leads you onto a more divine path, needs exercising. And so what we do is we start with the journaling, whatever comes to mind, put the time and date, as many numbers as become relevant along your path. You see a number in sequence over and over, it stands out in your mind. Anything that stands out in your mind, journal that down. it is all relevant to your story. And you will paint, over time, you will paint a picture on exactly what your destiny is molding out of, where it's manifesting out of. And it will change in your mind and in your imagination and in your memory. So we want to become more grounded at the same time we become more divine on this fulcrum point. So we meditate, and we don't start with elaborate meditations when we first start. What we do is we start off with very basic meditations that I call locational meditations. And there's two general types. There's many types, but there's two general types. There is, when you first start out, there is the locational body scan, where you are meditating and just breathing normal. You're not focusing on the breathing, but you're breathing normal. And you are scanning from the top of your head every single inch, every single organ, in and out, on the surface, inside, with your senses. You're scanning everything, all the way up and down, all the way to your toes, and then back up again, scanning very slowly, scanning, feeling every sensation. Sitting up straight, you might want to have a pillow supporting your back. I have a very, very bad back, so I've learned to develop different ways of doing this, but ultimately feet together, or feet generally relaxed, knees relaxed, whether together or apart, back straight, possibly a pillow behind you, just hands relaxed on the knees, head up, breathing normal, body scan, slow body scan, every single inch. You can't go wrong. You're feeling every little discomfort, every little comfort, every little tiny micro feeling. And so you do that for 10 minutes, twice a day for an entire month. That is the general idea. No matter what you start out with in your meditation, you go 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes of solid meditation twice a day, preferably more, but minimum twice a day for 30, 31 days straight. And so that will get you into a position where you can move on to another style of meditation. But before I go on to that, the body scan has a counterpart, which is the environmental scan. So you eyes open, meditating, regular breathing, and you are locating. Now we just heard some noise. You can close your eyes and just hear noise, locating audio, or you can have your eyes open, just locating visual. And so that will, and if you do that at 10 minutes twice a day for an entire month, that will actually open up your perception to receiving more subtle signs the universe gives you in synchronicity to when you're supposed to see them or view them or experience them. So both visual and audio can be exercised through locational meditations. And then we move on to breathing, rhythmic breathing. Breathing in for 4 counts, and breathing, holding, breathing out. Actually, I think the way it traditionally goes is breathing in for 4, letting out for 4, holding for 2 or 3, I believe. There's very many variations of rhythmic breathing. Find your favorite one, and then that's where we learn to get more oxygen, because more oxygen kind of like interprets into more loose imagination and more comfortability in your energetic field and in your body. There are subtle muscles that need to be relaxed when you do rhythmic breathing meditation. So you're constantly working towards this ability to be in the moment, be centered, be balanced, be upright, be postured, be proud, but then relax those muscles and get more oxygen into the lower and upper part of your lungs. along with rhythmic breathing. So if you're just starting from basics, I would go locational for a whole month, then move on to working in rhythmic breathing, or if you want, if you have the ability to work in rhythmic breathing with that, maybe do one in the morning, one in the evening, alternate for an entire month. That should give you a good basis for visualization meditation. And so this also, starting out, has to do with your breathing. Now that you've gone past that point of being able to breathe fully, get all that oxygen centered and balanced, now you use your imagination, expand your imagination into visualizing the air coming in as white light, coming in as white light and being expelled as a darker or a gray or a black. You can get creative, whatever you want, or just let it be natural. But as long as you're using that visualization, and the more the merrier, because you are working on exercising the visualization and imagination to go from inside your head to being able to see or experience it. Even with your eyes closed, you can still see it in your environment outside. Now this is a point of visualization. This is a point where you might also want to practice another locational visualization, imagination, meditation, where you are fully aware of the space you are meditating in. Let's just say you have a comfortable room to do so in, or even if it's just doing it in your car. Whatever space is in front of you, behind you, on the sides of you, you can see without looking directly at it. Every single detail. That is another exercise for your memory and your imagination. And then so with this rhythmic and visualization breathing exercise, you can gain more control of your imagination expansion in the space that you're doing it in. And you'll be able to see your auric field, your energetic field, and how it flows around you in your own way. It has no real set way. It is all about energies are constantly moving, and just like your memory, where you have to actually go back to a moment in time to get certain details, your memory and your imagination have a different sense of its own reality, where it will manifest for you how you want it to. That is why we're able to take on various systems of understanding energy and how energy works. So when someone says it's spiraling down, or it's cascading down, or it's swirling like a tornado, or it's little tiny things here and there in open space, it's all of that. It's whatever it is that's comfortable to you, however your spirit feels guided to perceive it. That is how broad our human perception is as you climb up the ladder in your perceptual awareness, on to perceiving the influence of galactic order, which we'll get into some other time. But okay, so now you're on to visualization. So all these meditations have led you up to a point where you can actually start moving the energy. So now you have visualization, you have a good sense of feeling that it's part of you. So now you are using all this imagination and visualization and meditation and center of balance to charge your energy. So now we need to know how exactly to do that. And to do that, that is where traditional practice, or I would say ritual magic, comes in. Magic with the K at the end. The inner working, high magic. And so I read Damien Eccles' book. Oh, it's right here. I read Damien Eccles' book, High Magic, and he gives a great staple for how one can go about this. Pretty much sort of like how I explained it. But the way I explained it is more based on my personal experience, because there's other things you need to know if you want to expand your awareness into the quantum mind. Okay, so this is a point where you have reached that fulcrum of knowing you need to be grounded, and you also need to take on more divinity and embody more divinity. And so this is how you're going to move past that, by working with something we call theurgy, which is God working or energy working. And so if you aren't ready to pick up a book for ritual magic, it's perfectly fine. All you really have to do is envision this. Now it's hard. It kind of gets hard to explain unless you pick out a book of traditional magic. But anyways, so when we meditate, there are reference points of energy where we can draw in a reference points to source energy, which we can draw energy from. And so there is a sphere above your head. Now, if you haven't done this before, if you don't understand what I'm talking about, we're referring to the energetic spheres of the Kabbalah, or the Tree of Life. And this sphere, which they call Kether, is right here. Kether is this card right here. It sits above your head. Now, aside from all the philosophies, when you do your regular stapled meditations for those months, those first preliminary months, let's say if you've never experienced this before, you should start feeling a sort of tingling, a sense on the top of your head. And if you haven't before, if you're at this point now, or if you get to this point, when you get to this point, all you simply need to do is visualize this white glowing sphere, glowing brighter than the sun, as bright as you could possibly imagine it. And it should, pretty much, with your attention going to it, maybe even if you reach your hand up and you touch it in this space imaginary above your head, you should start to feel that on the top of your scalp. Now that protrudes down into your head, but you should feel that static charge on the top of your head. Now that's like the first one. When you draw that energy down, simply just use your imagination and ask it to come down. It can come down to your forehead. It can come down all the way it could come down to your throat. It can come down to your heart. It's probably easier to feel it right about here in your heart center, the center globe that they tell you to imagine a plate size glowing disc. Okay. And that one is called, one second, hang on, it's here somewhere. Where are you? Probably at the bottom. That one's called Tiphereth, but you don't have to really worry about that right now. Just the visualization, once you get your literature together and you get the research you want to go to, whether you want to go Eastern chakra system with the 7 chakras, or if you want to go the Western magic tradition of the Tree of Life, the Kabbalah, it's going to work out just the same. But if you want to apply theurgy to energy working in a more focused setting, I would recommend going the Western tradition, because you can go either way. You can go both ways. In fact, I would recommend definitely going both ways, that there is no set way. So go both ways. But that Western application is going to help you clarify the messages and it's going to help you clarify incoming transmissions from higher order, okay, in the higher dimensional realms. There are 12 in total. Like I said, I'm not going to really get into it here, but we're working to that. If you we're still confused of what that is, what receiving information from higher order feels like, means, what how we experience it, this is going to help us clarify that when it comes. So so yeah, so theurgy. So we have gotten to the point where we can now sense these energies and bring in this energy from above, and now we can bring it down, we can bring it up from below, because the earth holds an energy realm also. And so that is in the tree of life, that is Malkuth. That is Malkuth. And so this sphere, even though it's a rainbow sphere here, what I visualize is more like, if you ever seen that old movie Jumanji, where they're playing the board game and they're that jewel in the center of that game is all black and green. I see it more like that. So I see more of a black and green sphere glowing with bright shards of white and black coming out of it. So this earth energy, Malkuth, you can draw energy up also into your energy center, or there is one more sphere called Yesod, I believe, the purple sphere. These are all called Sephiroth. So this sphere is right there at your waistband, big glowing purple plate sphere, connected to all these other spheres from above, from below, and you can bring that energy into your center and move that energy out through the palms of your hands to create whatever. So this is theurgy. So theurgy is a combination of energy that you have learned to manifest from your imagination, okay, through your energetic field, and bring it in from source energy. And now you are learning to configure it into thought forms. Thought forms are like mathematical implications of conscious intelligence. Everything that you can possibly have in your mind can be focused into a thought form. And it's super easy when you're doing this drawing of energy. Whatever is relevant in your mind goes into the thought form, and that is it. And so your imagination learns how to configure it into these mathematical principles, which is why it's important to have a basic understanding for numbers and math and angles and geometry. So you use that in your theurgy, your energy manipulation, and then you ground it and yourself by snapping yourself back into reality, letting it go, knowing that it served its purpose in synchronicity to where you are in place and time in that exact moment. And then you can feel that serenity and that bliss feeling of just letting all those thought forms go. So this really helps. Ritual magic, as its base point, in my opinion, helps to regulate and ground all of the chaos that you experience in your day-to-day life, with things failing, not working, being stressed out and exaggerated on the road with crazy people, or just having to deal with just the regular in and outs of regular family life. And even if you're a very focused and grounded person, if you find yourself on a path of seeking more, this energy expansion is exactly what one needs. That's exactly what the calling is asking you to do, because that energy expansion will allow you to do what is called high magic, which is a beneficial magic for yourself, and in its quantum element expands out to help other people. Okay? This is why we don't want to bring in negative thoughts into our magic unless they serve a purpose in the thought form, to be clarified and fixed, integrated in a positive manner. See, of our greatest benefit and of the greatest benefit of the world, which is why doing traditional ritual magic helps the earth. See? So it takes a lot of research to come to these conclusions, but I just sort of wanted to lay out a basic, a spiritual emergency of where we start from, the general feel for what everybody is trying to teach, to get you to go from, hey, I'm having this experience and I need to advance, all the way to the fulcrum point where it's like, okay, I either need to stay grounded or I need to go above and beyond. How can I do both? And so this is how we get to that point. And then so the next step from there is understanding a greater purpose along the different dimensional paths to understanding higher order. And for that, I recommend my perceptual scale of understanding higher awareness, which is the numerical scale I use to perceive higher dimensional awareness. It goes from 1 to 11, 1 being the self, 11 being the intuitive self. Sort of follows other traditional numerical guidelines, kind of like similar to 12-step programs, but this is sort of like something that once you get a general understanding of the intuitive self at number 11, you can stack on that and go higher in dimensional perceptual awareness, and this is to get you up to 11. So you'll totally get 12 and 13 and on up. Once you get up to 11, it's not hard to do. I swear it's not hard to do. First, the self, the perceptual awareness of self, which is what we started off in the beginning with talking about the basic exercises of just feeling the body, feeling the self, knowing as much about what I am versus what everything else is outside of me. So this is very fundamental because we need to understand balance. And so to understand balance in the physical sense, we need to gain grounds in some sort of exercise. So if that's sort of some sort of calisthenic, just understanding your body, or if you're limited or not, doing the locational body scan exercises, fully knowing the body. And if there's a problem physically, like let's just be simple about it. If there's a problem, like say in the leg area that needs to be stretched on a regular basis or wherever in the body, we know we need to do that. And so the body scans will help us do that, and it will help us to ground our body and be able to find stillness in the physical aspect of self. So the self has many layers to it, but we start with the body. So number two is our perception of anything that is not the self, which is anything that is energetic outside our body. We say energetic because things in the physical world are things in the physical world, but yet we can sit there in stillness, and in our minds, all of a sudden something comes into view in our senses, and we're like, okay, that's not me. Or at least it doesn't feel like me. It is something that needs clarification. And so those senses are our number two dynamic in our perceptual awareness using this scale. Now, when it comes to dealing with people, it is the emotions that people, like say we have an emotional conversation with someone else, and it makes us, our magnetized energy is getting charged. We're starting to have an effect of the conversation. That is something outside ourselves, because if we truly knew self, it wouldn't affect us. It would be visible like a play. And it would be like, oh, I have experienced that emotion. And then you'd be able to experiment with how much of the degree of that emotion you let into your energetic field. But when you've mastered the number two, you are actually able to use that energy and transfer it into something that is more of fruit and a gift to somebody, so that they can heal. So that is the extensive dynamic of our two dynamic. Three is the physical reality. Things that we are grounded in and that we work within the physical reality, in the different mechanisms and the laws of physical reality, and the different situations that we find ourselves in. That's pretty much easy to understand because everybody is hit constantly with physical reality. So, but it also has its very broad, infinite dynamic and multidimensionality, which needs to be explored through information, openness, knowledge, curiosity, love, compassion, empathy. Those are all things to navigate in the physical world. 4 is your is what I call your structure of influence. Any structure of influence that is outside those other three dynamic, those first three dynamics, structure of influence. So that would include a religion that seems to be propelled, through man, but will never, that you can see in your mind, it's never going to go away. It's a concrete structure. Or talking about concrete structures, the way that we build, or the way that we evolve building, or the fact that we need to build, the fact that we need to express, the fact that there are these unseen forces that guide us in humanity. Anything that seems like it is encompassed through the elements is defined by the fourth dimension, or our fourth dimensional perception. So being able to point out and say, hey, that is a series or influence of structure that exists on this many dimensions for me. And so that is how it separates itself from the regular physical world. Like, say, for example, the fact that we use Amazon, right? We order through Amazon. Amazon itself is the Amazon company itself, and it's what you are able to use with it is in the physical world. But its structure that stems from other points of reference in structure of way to do things stems from what seems like an infinite number of references that build on, that build on that build from a multi-spectrum. The fact that we are trying to, the fact that we came from somewhere and we try to reach further. So it's momentum. It's momentum in the way that that results in the way that we were able to use it. What's behind the curtain to its influence, its structure. It just like I used the first analogy, or the first when I pointed out that religion is like an unseen structure, because there's religions everywhere. It just seems to be something we need to do. And it influences us in our everyday life. And just like marketing now influences us in our everyday life, it has a fourth dimensional element that is kind of behind the scenes that can be viewed to a certain point, but ultimately it comes from a casting down of influence to make structure. And so that is our fourth dynamic. I hope I explained that good enough. Now, the fifth, what makes the fifth significant is it adds the extra variable in our perceptual awareness to be able to detect things that are outside those structures. Okay, to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, to be able to see the alchemy on the other side of the calcification, to be able to see the positive side to a dualistic reality, which is what the fourth dynamic introduces. It introduces a various structure of energies that produces duality. So, and this is what we can see closest to us. So you don't have to necessarily believe in God to be able to understand the fourth dynamic of our perceptual awareness. The fifth is that adds the extra variable where we can see outside that, or if you'd like to see it like a dice, where that dot is between the other two structures, it sees between everything. So that is like in the tarot, the card where we can see that there is action and knowledge to be taken on, in order to receive a clarification onto a higher plane of existence. That is the fifth dynamic in perceptual awareness, and these are all related to the higher dimensional orders of of the higher dimensional orders of where this information comes from, of where you're perceiving it from. So now 6 is I always call it standing on the mountain. It's not so much the place between places, it's more like the place seeing over places. And every dimension has its own let's call it its own energetic throne in your perceptual awareness. So they're all different in their own way. So 6 is sort of that place where we are able to actually cause influence between the more divine elements of life and the lower physicalities of life, or where energy springs from the earth or from the self. It's a journey in itself, the 6th dynamic, to help someone evolve. And I believe its color is the color blue. That color is probably visible somewhere in my background right as I speak. All these colors are. But anyways, so the sixth dimensional perception is sort of like it's a mixture of feeling of being able to hold both higher divinity and lower divinity, if there's such a thing, if there's such a reference point of the mind. Hold them both together and at the same be between them, and at the same time be above the mountain, and at the same time be able to exalt them. It is a place between places. It's kind of dimensional perception. But ultimately, where I find the 6th dimension to come in handy is when you're perceiving your Fibonacci sequence of events, energy points, or like I mentioned in the beginning, those reference points that are so familiar in your life that you can understand that this is part of your destiny. And then that has many layers to it too. So every little detail has a different resonance along your path from where you're born in your experience to when you end this experience in your life. Things will be familiar, people will be familiar. Like yesterday, I was in the market and I could have sworn that there was this woman pushing a cart with her child. I could have sworn I knew them. Could have sworn. I tried not to look directly at them, but it was like seeing a ghost. It was that feeling. And it was not an isolated incident, because before that, there was a mother with her child that my senses were trying to ignore. I kind of don't remember what was going on with that. But when I left that store, I walked out of there and there was another mother with her son in the cart. And she looked right at me and said, "I know where you live." And my senses were acknowledging it. And at the same time, it was a play. And I'm trying not to interact with it, because I know I just need to get the information. If I attach to it, it doesn't really serve much of a purpose, because even if she was saying something to me, even if I knew who that person was, it doesn't serve by attaching to the physicality. It's meant to teach me something deeper. That's where I am in my development. I know that. I see the play. I see the 10 of Swords, which is why this is a tarot channel. And I let her go. Now, in her mind and her facial expression, she's just like, okay, maybe he didn't hear me, and maybe it's irrelevant. Maybe I'll think of it later. Maybe this will have some sort of substance later. Meanwhile, I'm walking off in the other direction, being like, okay, Ryan, register everything that just happened. Now, the mother with the child, that's a personal thing. I'm not going to get into it, but that's the feeling, right? So, so to understand a perception of higher order, the 6th dimension is to have a more grounded sense in your perceptual awareness of all these sequence of events to have a grasp of dualistic reality, boom, in the palms of your hands, in a sense of speaking, in a sense of balance. Seven in your perceptual awareness on this scale is to perceive what is opportunities and to perceive what is illusions. Now, the preface to this is when you first start out, everything that heightens your sense and you want to attach to, like I mentioned, the mother in the three different cases of the mother in the market. So the seventh dimensional perception is where you are working out to see what is illusion and what is opportunity. So there were three series of events that came in there, and maybe there was an opportunity. It wasn't the point for my perceptual awareness to prove there was one in physical reality. So I let all three of them go. But the way this normally works the way reality actually works with the quantum mind's perception is that about three opportunities will present themselves and about three illusions will present themselves too. It is a balance of both. So seven, so 6 is a balanced number. 7, just like number 5, is stepping outside that awareness to be able to see it. Okay, so that's where you're standing on that mountain, just below it, looking up and being like, okay, I see all this. Okay, so but when you start out, number 7 is a very negative number because it's mostly just illusions rather than just opportunities. There are fewer opportunities and more illusions, and that is because we are grasping onto the physical, and we have not mastered that 6th dimensional perception of being able to tell what is illusions and what are opportunities, because opportunities are in every moment, and for every positive there is a negative. So there is a dualistic sense of having an opportunity. Number 7. And so that is a very fun and very humbling number to get around in your perceptual awareness, because you might have a lot of embarrassing moments where you go up to people. If your heart's desire is to find somebody to love you, if you are a lonely person, you might end up actually letting your awareness go, and you will follow 7 to those illusions, and because they will stand out in your ego mind that they are the brightest, you see. And so that is why we are trying to charge our aura, because we are trying to charge that which is actually opportunity, which will shine once you have mastered that 6th perceptual awareness. So that is what 7 is. It is illusions and opportunities that you need to illuminate. So number 7 is the hardest to get around for people who have religious battles in their life, faith battles, trust battles, because the influence of the 8th dimension and how we perceive them are casted down as what we would perceive as divine influence, or the structures the structures in our 4th dynamic that come from what we would call God, source, but source manifested. So in Christianity, it would be the Christian idea of God, and then cast down all the energies that represent the archetypes down through the dimensions. But 8 is where gods are. In the Greek philosophy, it was where their gods are. In the Indian, Eastern philosophies, Asian philosophies, that's where they are. Wherever there is a god, that is the 8th dimension. So basically, the way you work that out is the same way you work out your 4th dimensional perception. Is you allow trust and faith to come in. You allow yourself to humble yourself, and when you feel fear, because that is the main source of feeding energy, fear. So when you feel fear, so eighth dimension dynamic of perceptual awareness. When you feel fear, you are basically triggering this mechanism where it gives you an opportunity to be aware of what is causing that fear. And so fear, or let's just say you have a lack of trust or a lack of faith in God, of faith in the divine, say, that that is its root. Its root exercise has to do with anything that helps you integrate or transmute fear energy. Okay, that's the solid staple for the fourth and eighth dimensional perceptual awareness. To become more aware of what's causing structure and what's causing or structure in the physical world and what's causing divine influence or structure of divine influence, or what's causing this inability to understand the divine. Those are the dynamics 4 and 8. So once you reach past that point where you have faith, like, oh my gosh, the divine is in me, I am in the divine, let's do this, Jack. You have your ninth dimensional perceptual awareness. Now, what we would think of in numerology, or at least the way I came to understand this coming up, is 9 is your spirituality, your sense of spirituality. But this is a sense of spirituality and peace in that spirituality, a step above the divine. So that is where creation comes in. So creation, anything that has to do with creation, is a sense of vibration. Just like the creators create through vibration, through the universe, we create through vibration. So sound, art, anything that gets somebody to be influenced and to explore themselves all the way through those perceptual awarenesses, when you are creating those sorts of things and putting them out to the world, into a physical world, you are exercising your ninth perceptual dynamic. So if you're lacking something and you're just following, that's what it feels like you're doing. You're just following something. It's because you're not creating. And so for some people, that is drawing, illustrating, writing. That's my thing, writing, creating these videos, speaking, articulating, and becoming more one with that divine nature. Because now that I got it all happening, and so that's how you exercise that, is by doing something, vibrating. Take on a musical instrument. I want to one day, I want to have a tong drum, and I want to have a handpan. But if I get into that, I'm gonna want a whole bunch of them. So this is what my momentum works towards, trying to be able to do this in my ninth dynamic, and to be happy and charged about it. Every step of the way is reaching that barrier into your 10th perceptual awareness dynamic, the sense of completion, where you feel complete. I have everything I need. Now, where people lack in this dynamic is the fact that in their perceptual awareness, 10, or the sense of completion, is a ending point. But it's not an ending point. It is a static point that continues with you in momentum. And when you perceive this sense of yourself above your creations and everything in the world with it, and everything that is you, and everything that is in the divine, and everything that is in sequence, supposed to happen exactly when it's supposed to happen in your experience, you are perceiving that as a sense of being complete. And that is where your sense of nirvana, I would say, come in. Now, 11 is where you are doing this all the time. You have your sense of full momentum completion, and once you've reached that sense in your awareness, and your actions dictate the same, your actions dictate how you feel all the time, 24/7, whether you're asleep or you're awake, that those dynamics together create your 11th dynamic, which is the intuitive self, but the true intuitive self. Okay? Everybody has intuition. But when you are living that intuition, when you are embodying that self-intuition, the one in one, that is where you are able to fully understand the higher order of where influence from higher order comes from. And then so you can embody dimensions above and beyond that. And I really don't think it has much end. And if you start thinking that it does, then it will, right? Because everything is part of an infinite quantum existence. And this scale of perceptual awareness, I believe, can help anyone attain the quantum mind needed to navigate all these ancient teachings and very grounded spiritual influences of teaching us, of how to be more, of how to be one with ourselves, more grounded in this earth, but also be more one with the divine. So I hope that's helped you, and if it has, give me a thumbs up. Really trying to get into that algorithm. I really feel like this is an important, worthwhile video worth watching, and I'll try to put as many edits in as I can to make it as short as I can, but to make it as watchable as I can. My name's Ryan. You've been watching The Watcher's Alchemy. I'll catch you later.